There's a very crucial aspect of emergency response, which unfortunately is often overlooked. This is infant and young child feeding. And this presentation is on breastfeeding, which is one of the major factors in infant and young child feeding in emergencies. Breastfeeding saves lives. There is a lot of documentation on breastfed children being far less likely to become ill or to die in certain situations than non-breastfed children. And this is particularly exaggerated in crisis situations. There are several reasons for this. The dangers of formula feeding in emergency situations are, number one, there's an unreliable supply of formula. Their mothers depend on distribution, and distribution is erratic. There is an inadequate formula preparation space generally. In order to properly prepare formula, mothers need to be able to clean thoroughly the bottles, sterilize them, and everything else that besides the bottle itself that needs to be used. There has to be clean boiled water in order to dilute the powdered formula. There has to be dilution, proper dilution of formula. That means that when mothers don't get enough or are not sure where the next formula is going to come from, they tend to decrease the amount, and then the child doesn't get the proper amount that he or she should. Mothers, because again, they don't know when they're going to get any more, they tend to make up a feed and keep it for hours or for days and give it to the child later. This is very dangerous. Infant formula starts to go bad about an hour after it's made. In normal situations, the formula that is not taken by the infant should be discarded after the feed. But in emergency situations, mothers often don't do that. So the bacteria starts to grow and the infants tend to have greatly increased incidences of gastrointestinal, respiratory, and immune system disturbances, far more than breastfed babies. But we're not talking just about nutrition when we talk about breastfeeding. It's also about child protection, infant protection. The infant grows through the mother during pregnancy. Everybody knows that. And after birth, the mother's body still is what regulates the physiological responses in the infant, whose systems, neurological systems, and all systems are as yet immature. It is the closeness and proximity to the mother, which is very important for trauma protection in instances of disaster or emergency. One thing that, and breastfeeding is the main way in which infants feel that closeness to the mother. They are protected from trauma that way, protected from stress. When a mother is breastfeeding, she and the infant both have high amounts of certain hormones which counteract cortisol and other stress hormones. It means cortisol and other stress hormones cannot be highly present in a mother or infant's body when the hormones secreted by breastfeeding are. So it is a method of keeping both mothers and babies calmer, minds a little bit clearer. It doesn't take away the stress, of course, but it helps mothers to be able to respond to the situation in a better way. And it's a huge child protection issue, child protection measure, the closeness that comes with breastfeeding. Another point that I'm just quickly going to say, which doesn't relate to breastfeeding, is that the distribution of baby carriers is an excellent trauma prevention measure to be done in emergencies. This keeps the infant close to the parent. And as I was just saying, that is one of the main focuses on infant care. So if you have any chance to distribute baby carriers, please do so. There are many myths that you will hear from mothers in disaster situations and in non-disaster situations as well I don't have enough milk. My milk isn't good quality because I'm stressed, because I'm not eating well. I have heard that in crises, it's necessary to supplement breastfeeding with formula. I had to stop breastfeeding, and so therefore I have to give formula. All of these are untrue. Mothers' bodies are made to be able to produce enough milk, as much milk as the infant needs. The stress can affect what is called the letdown reflex. That means that the mother is producing the milk, but it is not coming out to the baby when the baby sucks. And that's because that's because of the stress, but the stress does not stop the production of milk. So what she needs is to be supported. She needs to be reassured that she can produce the milk, that this is by far the best thing she can do for her infant, to sit and to feel the closeness of her and the infant, which causes the secretion of these hormones, which then let the milk flow. So what you can do is to really support mothers and tell them that these things are not true. Even a mother who has stopped breastfeeding, if the baby is still under 6 months, she can start to breastfeed again. If a mother has stopped or decreased breastfeeding and started to introduce formula, you can encourage her to continue breastfeeding and decrease the formula. Just let the baby suck at the breast. The more the sucking reflex is present, the more the mother will produce milk. A little bit of support from you can go a long way in this situation. So a few quick things that you can do. First of all, is to encourage breastfeeding in all possible situations. Discourage mothers from using formula unless they absolutely need to. That is, if the baby has not been breastfed and only formula fed, then of course, that's what they have to do. Up until 6 months, the infant should be exclusively breastfed. No water, no juice, no tea, no other liquids, even in the hottest of weather, which is, of course, not what's happening now to you in this situation. But infants need only breast milk up until 6 months. And after that, they continue with the breast milk, and it should be ideally up until 2 years is what the WHO and most all of the breastfeeding associations recommend. If a mother, so the second point is find lactation consultants. Ideally, in an emergency, lactation consultants would be one of the main players in any emergency response team, but rarely does that happen. Lactation consultants can help mothers who are having trouble breastfeeding. Try to find local Romanian lactation consultants or Ukrainian, if possible, volunteers internationally or online. At Amirtel Greece, we are prepared to do online consultations. We began this during lockdowns, and it's not as good, of course, as in person, but it works. In any way that you can get a mother who's having doubts about breastfeeding or problems to talk to a lactation consultant, please do so. Mothers who have to formula feed need help to do it properly and hygienically. They need to have the materials. In an emergency situation, you can set up an area for mothers to be able to breastfeed, prepare the formula. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Number 4 is to discourage the random distribution of formula. What happens in emergency situations is that donations of formula are sourced and they are given out to any mother who has an infant. And this is very dangerous. It can do more harm than good. Mothers who are breastfeeding should not be given formula. And the organizations that are giving out the formula need to understand the dangers and ideally A lactation consultant would be there to assess the mothers and assess who needs formula and how much and who doesn't. But when that's not the situation, formula should be given very carefully only to mothers who absolutely need it. A fifth thing you can do is to create safe mother-baby spaces or infant feeding spaces. These can help a mother. They can be a quiet room, one small room, one tent somewhere, a container, someplace where the mothers can go to be with other mothers who are breastfeeding, and encouraging each mother to do so. When in these spaces, ideally the breastfeeding mothers and the formula feeding mothers would be in separated areas, because psychologically, in an emergency situation, when people have lost everything, they need to receive everything through distribution. Breastfeeding mothers tend to psychologically accept or want to accept formula because it's being given. In a mother-baby area or an infant feeding space, you keep the spaces separate, and the mothers who are receiving formula have an area there to prepare it properly. The mothers who are breastfeeding usually are given either extra food or extra liquids. My experience is that mothers who are given food, and breastfeeding mothers do need good nutrition, but they tend to give the food anyway to their children. If it's dried food, dates, nuts, whatever it is. But they need a lot of liquid. Mothers who are breastfeeding need to drink a lot of water, particularly. So one thing you can do is to go around to the areas where the mothers are breastfeeding and distribute more water to them. If you have a safe space, you have more liquids or more water in the breastfeeding area. There are a lot of resources for you. This is a very, very brief listing here. If you want to learn more, at Amortel Greece, this is our main focus. Pregnancy and infancy up to 2 years of age is what we do. So we are available to help anyone with questions. You can learn a lot if you're interested in this, but primarily please realize that breastfeeding is a nutritional and infant protection measure that is of utmost importance. It saves lives. So please, please, please watch out for the breastfeeding mothers and encourage them and help the formula feeders to do it properly and hygienically. They will thank you. I thank you. Thank you for listening. But really, it's the mothers and the babies primarily who will thank you even more.